Welcome to Village Talk Podcast with hosts Cortland Jones and Shauna Felton King. Village Talk highlights the views and voices of the community. And now your hosts, Cortland Jones and Shauna Felton King.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Village Talk, where we highlight the voices and views of our community. And my co-host is with me, Shauna. Say hello, everybody.
Hey, Cortland, how are you today? Good to be here.
Yes. It is exciting to be here. And in a moment, I reflected on the reality of having our previous guest talk about how she was using that rear view expectancy. So it was awesome to be able to see someone actually applying something that we had talked about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got a show for our guest today on the subject of Black History Month. So
it is Black History Month, right? It's February, It's real. It's here, and it's all year that we really should talk about it. But it's nice that this month we are really focusing on it.
Yes, and Voices of Our Heritage is our theme for this particular show. And when you think of Black History Month and Voices of Our Heritage, what comes to your mind, Shauna?
Well, it's interesting you say that because Voices of Our Heritage, we have, as African Americans, we've got such a legacy.
Yes.
Of Black excellence, and to be able to take the time and really focus on it, and even in our schools and stuff, to be reminded of that level of Black genius, Black excellence, that I like to call it, is wonderful. And it was interesting today, or actually a couple days ago, I was listening to the news and heard of a Utah school. I think it was a Montessori school out in Utah, and they had opted. I guess the leader says something about that they were getting some pressure about the Black history curriculum that was coming up in February, and their response was to send out an opt-out form, to send to the parents where they could opt out of the Black history curriculum that was coming up. And there's really been a lot of public backlash about that. And there's an outcry because if you think about it, Cortland, Black history is American history. So to say that they're going to opt out of that, I mean, how crazy is that?
Yeah, the moment I heard you say opt out, I'm thinking of sex education. There are certain things that as a parent, you can decide you just would prefer your child learn directly from you.
Yeah, and I used to teach health education. I used to teach that, and you were right. And usually the response was, "I want to do this at home." But I would love to think that the parents who are choosing to opt out are because I would prefer to make sure they get their African American history at home. But I kind of doubt that that's really what that was about.
Yeah, when I hear opt out in this particular instance, I'm hearing we're just going to not acknowledge that part of history. And what I find interesting in that, so I had the privilege last year of facilitating a workshop on behalf of the Howard County Center for African American Culture, which is in Columbia, Maryland. And they invited me to do a 5-day presentation once a week about the Harlem Renaissance, which was eye-opening for me. One of my favorite artists all time is Jacob Lawrence. So it was a treat and a treasure to be able to, outside of my normal role as an educator, share this information with a group of young people. And in researching and in discussing the information with those youth, I reminded them that the Harlem Renaissance is as much a significant part of American history as any other part of history. When you look at the time period, the impact, and the reach of the movement, there is no way, when I think about opt-out, that you could talk about American history and ignore such a significant time period. And one of the reasons why I said that to them, people like Louis Armstrong, um, poet, I can't think of his name.
Langston Hughes.
Thank you, Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston.
Yeah.
People who are celebrated for who they are and what they have contributed to American history.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you wouldn't know that they are directly correlated to the Harlem Renaissance.
So I'm curious, was this a surprise for the young people that you were working with? Did they seem like they were well versed, or was this like new information for them? I'm curious.
A lot of them shared that it was new information for them, which I was excited about because it was for me also to see the depth of the number of people who I know from a historical perspective have been celebrated for their contributions as artists or musicians, as poets, as authors. But to see that they came out of this time period and yet you don't hear a lot about the Harlem Renaissance and the fact that 2019 was the 100-year anniversary.
Wow. And I had this conversation recently, Cortland, with some school districts that I'm working with, because often when they think about African American history, it's only through the lens of slavery or the civil rights movement. Those two, as if those are the only two time frames to talk about, and the African Americans are framed under just those two, slavery, as if that's where it all started, slavery and then the civil rights movement. So for you to say that you took the time to talk about something great like that period of the Harlem Renaissance is something that's so important that really should be taught more in schools and should be something that is very common that we discuss, but we don't really see that, do we?
No, I agree 100%. And just in what you shared, slavery and the civil rights movement, the Harlem Renaissance took place right in the middle of that. And the interesting thing was, if you just look at it from the backdrop of slavery, to know that there was a point in history where African Americans actually celebrated who they were as people. And so I was able to share with the youth, to me, before Black Lives Matter, the Harlem Renaissance was the Black Lives Matter of that time period. The significance of that time period was that they wanted to control the narrative of how others saw us as people. Okay. They wanted to control the messaging because at the time it was about the Negro with the Nigger word, lazy, shiftless. That was the information that was being put out there. And again, from the backdrop of slavery to get to that time period, now you're seeing African Americans who are dressed well. The Cotton Club was significant because the movement took place in Harlem.
They were sharp. They were sharp.
Yeah. So to see African Americans dressed well, you had authors, you had poets, you had musicians. And again, these people were celebrated. The movement stretched as far as Europe, in Paris, and also in Africa, as well as the Caribbean. So again, look how far the movement reached. It started in Harlem. It went so far as Manhattan and New York, but it also crossed international waters. And so this, again, how significant is this time period? And then yet you rarely hear about it.
Wow. So thank you to you. And then any of educators or even, parents who are listening, during this particular time, being able to share that information about the Harlem Renaissance, about, examples of Black excellence with our young people, because they need to know this. They need to know, the legacy, as we're saying, that they come from. And I think, sometimes, there's just a disservice done during African American History Month. And like I said, it's just often limited in some of, and we can't say, we're not going to say all,
Yeah.
but like I said, it's limiting it. And all I remember, too, it was Dr. Martin Luther King,
Mm-hmm.
Harriet Tubman, Rosa
Right.
Parks. That's it. That's it. And
Yeah.
absolutely great figures in African American history, but that's not all there is. That's
But
not all there is.
but even in what you're saying, you know how oftentimes this is that time of year you begin to see that list of all the inventions that
Yes.
we have created, and again, we're not always privileged on a national level to be provided this information. When I hear you say that, I think about during the 70s, the late 70s, Roots would always come on television
Mm-hmm.
on an annual basis during this time of year. The movie about Dr. King would come on TV as well, and the actor
King, yeah.
who would play him, yes.
I
So
haven't seen that lately. Have you seen it on lately?
no, but just in what you're sharing,
Yeah.
again, we had a very limited
Yes.
exposure to our understanding of what Black history was. And like you
Yeah.
said, it was either slavery or civil rights.
Absolutely. I can't think of the name of the movie, but there was, there when you have some of the other folks who have been highlighted through, advances in medicine or in education. Um, just there's so many journalism. I think about like Gwendolyn Brooks. We have, so many. There's so many African Americans who have made some major contributions that, we really wanted to take the time today to just kind of, reflect and honor that. And we're not going to stop with just today's. And, this, later on in the show, we're going to talk about what we're going to continue to do as a ongoing honoring of these wonderful Black voices that we know we should, who have created this legacy for us today.
Yes, I'm excited about sharing that. And so, on the other side of our break, Shauna and I are going to have the privilege and opportunity to talk about some people we feel are an inspiration to us as it relates to voices of our heritage. And like Shauna said, we have an announcement we want to make as far as what our plan is as it relates to our platform and making sure that we highlight this Black excellence. So thank you again, everybody who is joining us, and we look forward to sharing with you again on the other side of our break, Village Talk, where we highlight the voices and views of our community.
Feature your business with a full or half page ad in an upcoming issue of Vision and Purpose Lifestyle Magazine. Advertise your business, book, or event and reach potential clients. Vision and Purpose Lifestyle Magazine covers and features stories in business and entrepreneurship, education, performing arts, sports, community outreach, fashion, travel and real estate, health and wellness, and more. Contact us at info@vnpmagazine.com, or you can reach out to our Director of Sales, Ms. Karen McConnell Jones, at 202-904-1000. Vision and Purpose, inspiring our community.
Welcome back. Welcome back. This is Village Talk. You are joining Shauna Felton King and Cortland Jones here on the Village Talk couch, where we are celebrating the fact that we are in the middle of Black History Month, African American History Month. Yes, and we are just excited to celebrate Black excellence. And as one of my favorite authors, Goldie Muhammad says, the genius, Black genius that is among us. And we really want today's conversation is really about highlighting that and talking about some of the people who we have really been inspired by that sometimes we don't always hear a lot about. So, Cortland, this is really your area. Are one who is always highlighting different things, especially when it comes to writing and authors and poets and things like that. So, who are some of the people that have really contributed to kind of who you are and who you say inspire you?
Oh my gosh. So I mentioned Jacob Lawrence earlier, which I think I'll wait